This week on Catholic Pour Over.
We've gotten to the point in our culture where we're embarrassed to be dependent upon others for help.
Yeah.
When in reality, that is what we are as a human family. We're at our best when we're depending upon each other. So Maria, let's talk about your favorite book from 2025 and the book that I am currently reading with my young adults at the cathedral here in 2026.
So The Dignity of Dependence by Leah Libresco Sargeant.
Yeah.
So you gifted me this book, and it was my favorite book of 2025.
Well, I was at that fall conference at the University of Notre Dame in November, and there were two panels that morning that I thought, ooh, these are both interesting. One was on metaphysics, and since my training is in philosophy, I thought this would be good. Like, where is metaphysics going today? But I kind of already know where metaphysics is. It doesn't change, right? But there was another panel with these three women. One was a scripture scholar from St. Charles Borromeo Seminary in Philly. The other one was Leah, and the other one was Abby Jorgensen, who's at SLU. And I thought, this will be interesting. And I'm always wanting to learn more about things that I don't know about. And after the talk, I saw that Leah had just released this book. So I went and bought 3 copies, one for myself, one for you, and one for Mary. And I wanted to get them signed, and I didn't. It took a while. And then I finally found her, and she signed all 3. And so I'm glad the book was good, because if it sucked, it would have been really embarrassing.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have a podcast about it, but it's very good. So what did you like about it, or what do you like about it?
Yeah. So I would say through most of my adult womanhood, and especially once I got married and became a mother, I always just felt this tension in my womanhood, in maternity, and having a career and working. And Leah was able to put to words every feeling and experience that I've had. And I feel she nailed it right on the head. Because I would say I'm not a feminist, but I am very pro-woman and the dignity of women and our gifts and everything. And she presents it not so much in a Catholic way, but in just a practical, rational way of identifying the problems that women face today and motherhood and dependency, that we're all dependent, and that the world is set up in a way that is pro-man. And I think that's why we see the tension in down with the patriarchy stuff, but that we need to complement each other, which we've mentioned many times on this podcast. But she just, identifies the problem, explains it, and offers a solution in a way that is, I think, like I said, just hits the nail on the head.
And some would say that makes you sound like a feminist. So, and I mean, she says in her subtitle, it's a feminist manifesto.
Yeah.
So it's all in the way you understand what feminism is.
Right.
And I think the book offers great nuance, because she's obviously pro-woman.
Right.
And that first chapter, I'd like to talk about that with you, because you're an athlete as well as a mom, and you have a career, and you've been in corporate world and all that. But she talks about the fact that in many ways, the world is fitted more for men than for women. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So she titles the first chapter, "The World is the Wrong Shape for Women." And basically, she gives all these examples, like real life practical examples that we all deal with, of how the world is just set up for men, without recognizing and acknowledging just the differences between men and women. So she talks about medical equipment, how certain, tools.
A scope.
Yeah, are fitted for a man's hand, but women have smaller, weaker wrist hands. But instead of creating tools, medical tools that would fit women's hands so that they can use them properly, women have just more or less submitted to finding workarounds to making us fit in a man's world.
Learning to adjust, because I remember the one line, let me show you how to scope like a chick.
Yeah.
Because one of the doctors figured it out, and she said, you got to lift your pinky this way in order to use this tool that was created for doctors, but men doctors in mind, not women. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an example of just counters, like your kitchen counters are the wrong height. They're more fitted to men's height. And so we would maybe find like step ladders to work our way around it, or whatever we do to work our way around a kitchen.
And she said you couldn't, because the countertops are low or too high, a woman can't get all her strength into it.
Yeah.
My mom was 5'1.5", and I saw how this played out in her life. So it wasn't that she was weak, but if the countertop isn't built for you, it makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Then even just example of safety and cars, that the airbags in a car and the height of, or what's the word?
The distance between
the steering wheel and the driver's seat. Women are injured more, or the percentage is higher of women being injured in car accidents than men, just because of the way that cars are manufactured.
And she said that the dummies that are used in crash tests, remember the Crash Test Dummies, great band from the 90s, by the way, are men. They're modeled after a male body, figure, weight, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then she got into the WNBA a little bit in basketball, which I thought was great.
And big controversy over the 3-point line, or the arc of the three-point line. And just debate of whether like some women were in favor of keeping it the equal distance that men use, because, women can do everything the men can do. That argument. Or the game would be more exciting, more points scored if the line was just moved in closer, and the scores competition would be better suited to women's physical abilities.
Or if the rim were lowered.
Yeah.
And the ball for women is still smaller. That has not changed, correct? Because of the size of a woman's hair. I'm pretty sure that ball, the WNBA ball, is smaller than the NBA ball.
Yeah.
And people don't seem to complain about that. So the whole first chapter is she's setting up that women's bodies are different, and we've got to keep that in mind. And they'll also reveal something to us about our nature as human beings, and that is that ultimately we're not made for independence and autonomy, which is an Enlightenment idea that once you have to rely on no one and you are completely independent and autonomous, which no one ever is, by the way.
Right.
We think we can be. Then you are free, and then you can flourish. And the thesis of this book is that there is a dignity to dependence, because all of us came in the world entirely dependent, especially upon our mothers, who held us in their wombs and then birthed us, and then in many instances fed us and nourished us along the way, because we all of us at a certain point in our life, she uses this word, I love it, asymmetrical love, meaning that we didn't do anything to merit the love. We didn't do anything to earn it or deserve it. We were just there, and we were loved because we were. Now, as you said, this is more philosophy, it's more anthropology. She is a dynamite Catholic woman, and it eventually leads us to realize, my gosh, then this all shows us that we are ultimately dependent upon God for everything. And we make a big mistake when we think, I don't need God in my life because I'm self-sufficient.
Yeah. And I think one of the big arguments in her book is that society suffers by not acknowledging our dependency upon each other. And then as the book continues, she lays out that case more and more and more. Especially if you want to move on, we can move on to some of those examples.
Yeah, let's do the one example about the 79-year-old Vietnam veteran whose wife was in a nursing home, and he got caught up in a huge snowstorm and couldn't get out of his driveway. And the New York Times wrote about it because he had to call his neighbors to help him out. And Leah Libresco Sargeant thinks that isn't it so sad, she asks, that we've gotten to the point in our culture where we're embarrassed to be dependent upon others for help. When in reality, that is what we are as a human family. We're at our best when we're depending upon each other. Because we can't possibly provide for everything for ourselves, and we need each other. Yeah,
there's the fear of being a burden on someone, or that you're messing up their day, interrupting them.
She said 40% of people who opt for euthanasia do so because they don't want to be a burden to their families. these are significant phenomena in our culture that need to be corrected. And a big part of this is thinking that to be dependent is to be less than, or to be embarrassed about, or to be humiliated. And she makes a big distinction between humiliation and humility, and to know where you are and to need to ask for help. So yeah, talk about some of those examples that you thought of.
Yeah. So in chapter 4, then chapter 5. So chapter 4 is titled "The Incredible Shrinking Woman," and she brings up the examples of anorexia, contraception, but then also inhumane work demand, and that these are all ways, especially for women, that we feel we need to either conform or exit, I would say almost like public life, working life, because of just who we are biologically as women. And this especially really resonated with me because when Phil and I got married, I got pregnant right away. I was working. I didn't know about FMLA. I didn't know about maternity policy, anything like that. But when Caitlin was born, like, there was nothing. Like, I had no coverage, and I had to just basically not work for as long as I needed to recover. But there was no workplace, I guess, accommodations for that or coverage for that. And so throughout most of like my working career, it's been like almost a choice between family or having a job. And I think she really touches on that in the inhumane work demands that people like, a kid, you get a call from the school that your kid is sick, and you almost feel like you're asking permission to go pick up your kid and take care of them. And just a very real tension that we have, that we're set up in society, that you feel you have to make a choice between the two.
Talk about that U shape between the different socioeconomic classes.
Yeah. So this is really what she gets into then in chapter 5 of what she calls the limits of labor language. So basically a family and a woman in a family, if you're on the lower income level, it's almost better economically for the woman not to work because your salary, your pay will not cover childcare, whatever home services you need to upkeep the house. Then the other swing is where you're, wealthy, your income can cover all of that. So then a woman can stay home to raise the kids, everything to take care of the home. But it's where you're in that middle class income that you feel this tension between work-home balance. Like, you make enough to cover expenses, cover childcare, and it's helping your family kind of live a better, more comfortable life. But, and this is a quote she has in here that I really loved, is like, there's a small envy that can creep in when middle-class moms imagine what it would be like to not feel like you're too valuable to be allowed to parent your child. Mm. And that like is very true. Like, you feel like you're not winning either way. Like, I have gifts that I want to share with the world and that I feel like maybe God calling me to, but then am I letting my kid down by not being there? I mean, personally, a couple of years ago, Caitlin goes to me, "Mom, you're like the only one of my friends' moms that works." Oh. And it wasn't like mean, but it was just something she observed. Mm-hmm. And not to say that she didn't want me doing what I was doing or the job that I was doing, or that I was letting her down in any way, but just an observation that she made.
Yeah. I remember my mom stayed home until my brother started high school, and then she had to go back to work because we needed the double income in order to pay for the Catholic education. Right. And I remembered, even though she was teaching, so I'd get home first. She wouldn't be too close after, but I know that it was something different for her too. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom was able she was like the school secretary and then the parish secretary. So she was still always around, even though she was working. But I think there's also like when your kids are young and before they're in school, like at least for me, it was like, well, if I leave the workforce, could I ever then re-enter it if I'm out that long? Would I have any hireable skills?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a real tension, I think, on the motherhood and raising kids end. But she gets into other examples too of like the elderly and disabled.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons I liked reading the book as a priest, because I don't experience any of these things firsthand, but it's very helpful for me to know this. Now with the elderly, I certainly did, because both of my parents were in Catholic nursing homes before they died. The last few years for my dad, 2.5 years, and 53 weeks for my mom. But she gives examples here that if you're paying for home health care, and let's say the healthcare worker doesn't show up and you do the work, you don't get any money or reimbursement for that.
Right.
But someone else, a stranger who's taking care of your family member, does. And she calls out the injustice in that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that those examples were also very real too. Cause like Phil and I are in that point where like we have older parents, like we're what they call like the sandwich age right now, where you have parents that are getting to the age where they're going to need help and everything, but then you're still raising kids. You still have kids in the house. And it is like when your parents start to need help and maybe you want to be the one to be able to do it, but the way government systems are set up, like there's no, you have to pay someone to do that service because you're almost not allowed to.
Right. And paying a stranger rather than paying family member who you love, or however all that works. And she's calling out the fact that it's good to recognize we need to depend on each other, that we need to depend on each other and other people need to depend on us. And there is a dignity in that dependence.
Just kind of furthering that point a little bit of dependency and even friendship and relationships that you have, we tend to almost get caught up in a I owe you sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And the bartering.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if she names where this culturally happens, but like if you were to, give someone 2 goats or something.
I wouldn't give you 2 goats back. The example she uses is 2 chickens. If you were to give me 2 chickens and I gave you 2 chickens back, that would say we don't want anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
But if you gave me 2 chickens and I gave you a big bag of flour and a bag of sugar, we're like, who's ahead? It doesn't really matter because we're in this for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
more
then
relational.
And she relates that example to like friendship. Like you're out with your friends for a meal and like, okay, I'll pick up this meal and maybe you get the next one. So you're not really trying to trade dollar for dollar because you want the relationship to continue going. You should never feel with your friends or family and an I owe you sort of thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I'm just thinking that I'm getting ready to go on a vacation with my friends to New York, and I told them that I paid this much for show tickets the other day, so maybe that makes me less of a friend. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So you, as a man reading this book, what struck you the most in it?
Well, I did like that there was a section for men in there.
Yeah.
And about that she recognized that men bring particular gifts to the table. I think all the insights that she had about things that I don't think about often helps me, because I love learning and I love learning about other people's experience. And I think the more I know about women and their lives and some of these concerns, particularly that mothers have, or she says even those who have not had children know that there's a potential that they could, and this is on a woman's mind more than I think it's on a man's mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a woman gets raped, there's a chance that she could become pregnant If a man is sexually assaulted, there's no chance that this happens. So even those kind of things, that's always good to keep in the front of my mind. I mean, I know that biologically,
Yeah.
but the way that she tells the story and the way that she presents what is true, I found very helpful.
Yeah. I think it was particularly impactful to me to, I guess, almost it made my experience feel seen and like someone else understands
Yeah.
what it's like. And this is, I guess, in a way, I'm not as unique as maybe I think I am,
Mm-hmm.
that it is a shared experience and problem. And probably why so many young women would say that they don't want to have children or don't want to have a family.
A lot of
Because you do feel like you have to choose one or the other.
Especially if you're middle class and you think, well, why am I getting pinched if I'm trying to live a good life and I'm not super poor and I'm not super rich, and yet I'm the one who has to make hard decisions. I think that's real.
Yeah. But also like even the end of life or elderly care examples that she brought up, because like euthanasia and medically assisted suicide, all of that is on the rise too.
Yeah.
That almost if you're not a contributing member of society, you have no use or value anymore.
I mean, that's the whole problem with utilitarianism. We're human beings, not human doings, and our dignity comes from the fact that we exist, not by anything we do. And my parents in the last days of their life couldn't do anything. They were just dying. And certainly someone could have said, well, let's put them out of their misery. But there's something about letting what happens naturally happen naturally. And if pain relievers are needed, that, do all that. But there's something, again, where we're changed in participating in caring for those too. We become more human in doing the kind of things that human beings are called to do well. Which reminds me, by the way, it came back to me what I wanted to say. When I heard her talk live, when she got up there, she said, I just want to say from the beginning, there's a lot of women with babies in their arms. And I think someone who was holding her baby, I love the sound of crying babies. Let that happen. And she goes, and know that I'm from New York and I could talk louder than any of you, which I thought was a really good example for me as a priest who there's often crying babies in church, but how not to get distracted by that. And that's actually a good, that there's even babies at an academic conference. And if you've got 3 women, and I know at least 2 of them have children of young age, that there's going to be noise and there's going to be distraction, and that's part of life. And this isn't a place where we can have absolute silence and no distraction. That part of living is being distracted. And if a baby cries or someone needs her mom, okay, well that's going to happen too. And she's able to both write books and mom at the same time.
Yeah.
And give talks.
Yeah. It's the sound of babies is the sound of life. It's like life is going on, existence is going on, and it's what we're made to do, meant to do.
I heard one parish in the diocese, they have a little mantra that says, if your parish ain't crying, your parish is a dying. So it's true. Like you can want a parish that's completely quiet, but where's the life coming from? So yeah, and it's good that there's children in church and in the world, and there's sick people and all, because it allows us an opportunity to see Christ in them and be Christ for them. So
yeah,
it's cool.
It's good to be needed, and it's okay to ask for help.
So, Maria, let's say someone's listening, watching us right now and saying, yeah, see, it's a man's world. How can women survive? Do we have to blow up the system, fight the patriarchy? What do you do?
Well, as I've thought about this, and as I mentioned earlier, that it was refreshing to read and know there are other women out there that acknowledge and are thinking about this. And I think the conversation needs to keep going. So not conforming to things that are forcing you to shape yourself as a woman, as a man, or to deny your womanhood in any way. And that's not to mean that there's going to be an instant change, but to work for change and to work with other people, other women, even men that will join the fight, and just continue to talk about it and request changes and not think that you're doing something wrong by doing that.
Yeah. What gave me a lot of hope was when I first heard of this book, it was at a conference at Notre Dame, which is Our Lady's University. It's such a beautiful name for a university, one of the best in the country. And there were 3 women on this panel who were using their voices and their intellect to put forth ideas and change other people's hearts and minds so that others can enter into the conversation and make the world a more just and a more charitable place and a more welcoming place for women and their bodies.
Yeah. It's ultimately, it is what is best for society. And what's best for society is to be pro-woman and pro-family. So your organizations and institutions should be able to back up what they say with what they do.
Correct. And that doesn't mean being anti-man.
Right.
It means allowing women to be women, allowing men to be men. And when we're at our best, that's when we're flourishing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's when we're raising good, healthy boys and girls who eventually become healthy men and women. Yeah. Who are always dependent.
Yeah. So as we talked through this book, we said like Leah lays the argument from a more philosophical standpoint and not theological.
Yep.
How do you see our theology tying into this?
Yeah, ultimately, although she doesn't make the move in this book, she did in the lecture that just as children are in an asymmetrical, loving relationship with their parents, particularly the mom, who loves her children not because they did anything, but because they exist. That is an analogy for God and us. He loves us because we exist, and there's nothing that we could do to make God love us anymore. And so God already loves us, and so to realize that it's okay to be dependent upon his love is a very good thing. And I don't remember who said this, but I heard it recently. Maybe it was Pope Francis. I don't know. In the confessional, there are no adults, meaning we're always God's children and that we're always dependent upon him and his mercy. And that is not a bad thing. That's a very good and beautiful thing. When we were developing this podcast and we decided to call it Catholic Pour Over, the idea was to pour over all sorts of things that matter to people, especially young people. So whether it's music or whether it's film or whether it's books. And both you and I have poured over this book, and I think it's a wonderful book for our audience to pour over too, that can help them better understand their relationship with each other and their relationship with God.
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest requests was that we do book reviews, so we're trying to honor that request as well.
We did it.
All right, so thanks everyone. Thanks for watching or listening. We will pour over many more books, movies, shows, music, anything else in the culture on our next episode.